Thank you all very much for coming. I'm Nacho Marti. I'm the co-head of Environmental and Technical Studies at the AA, and I'm leading the implementation of CinnovatE project at the AA. So it was almost, it was a year ago that Xavier Aguiló told me there's some people in Madrid that would like to discuss the opportunity to collaborate in a project funded by the European Institute of Technology, the Higher Education Initiative, and they want to discuss if you would be interested. So thank you, Xavier, very much for this. So yeah, it was a year ago that we got together online, and they invited the AA to be part of this amazing opportunity. And they were telling me, okay, do you want to be part of this project? We're going to be working together with Nord University. Thank you very much. Welcome. With PKF Income from Madrid. And also with us, the IE, Instituto de Empresa in Madrid, South Summit from Madrid. And we want to discuss how we can move together towards future circular cities through innovative education and entrepreneurial ecosystems. So we worked intensively to put together the proposal, and here we are. It was amazing in March to receive the news that we got the grant, and we've been working intensively to implement all the activities in phase one. Thank you very much, Martin from Climate Kick. They're helping us implement everything and guiding us through this process. So the plan for today is to kind of explain what we've been doing in phase one, so a number of activities. And we have structured the day in 4 panels. So the first panel is about planting the seed. What are the activities that we are doing, new programs. Then panel 2, it's about nurturing growth, so how we make these seeds grow. Panel 3, I need to check the name of the panel 3. Panel 3 is first fruits, how we start gathering and harvesting the first results. So looking at mentorship, masterclasses, and startup pathways. And panel 4, it's going to be an open session, which we want to discuss how we move from circular cities to global impact. So it's basically how we can start scaling things up and move towards future circular cities through innovative education and entrepreneurial ecosystems. I'm going to hand over to Juan Capeans, who is the project leader of CinnovatE and also director of the Center for Sustainable City.
If I may, the Sustainable Transition Hub.
Exactly.
Right.
And he will explain you what CinnovatE is. And then we will have Martin introducing Climate Kick, the activities that they do, and briefly explain the European Institute of Technology Higher Education Initiative. So thank you all very much for coming. And we look forward to discussing with you and receiving your feedback, how we can implement this and improve it and make it even better. Thank you.
Well, welcome everyone. Thank you for being here. As Nacho mentioned, my name is Juan Capeans. I am the director of the Sustainable Transition Hub at IE University. 1 year ago, we started to speak about potential collaboration under this program, which is going to be explained by Kate afterwards. And we consider that the project could be a lever for introducing innovative approaches to universities as a way of channeling entrepreneurship, innovation, and sustainability within the universities that are part of the consortium. Yeah, CinnovatE stands out as a collaboratively effort from the beginning. It truly reflects or it tries to reflect the purpose of modern higher education, integrating circular economy as a lever for competitiveness of different sectors. Mainly, one of the focus of the project is the built environment, but not only. It is also like a way also of introducing radical collaboration within the universities that are about the consortium, and it is a way of driving this collaboration to a higher standpoint. Nacho, thank you very much for hosting us. Yesterday was great. We had a work meeting where we have reviewed all the advancements we have within the project. We have also identified some barriers to be corrected in the next months. You know, the project is going to be lasting till April 2027, and we have the next phase ahead. It's going to be challenging, but we are sure that joint collaboration between all the universities is going to be bridging very impactful initiatives, not only regarding training, but also entrepreneurship initiatives and many others that could be really relevant for the universities. So that's mostly what I wanted to say. I want to thank you as well, the rest of the partners. It is the first in-person meeting we had. It has been a long wait till today. We had many online meetings, but in-person meetings are different, and I think that is a major milestone for the project. So thank you very much to the ones that are attending from different parts of Europe, and looking forward to the discussions of the day. So it's going to be very interesting. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Juan. Before inviting Kate, I would like to thank you, everyone at the AA Comms, facilities, Alexandra Savchenko for the amazing work organizing the workshop and the symposium, the school management, AV, and everyone that has been supporting the implementation of CinnovatE. And also thank you very much to our partners for making the effort. Nord University, Lithuanian Business School, South Summit, PKF Attest, IE, and all the team at ETS for supporting this. Thank you all very much. Kate, welcome.
So hi everyone, my name's Kate. Thank you so much for CinnovatE Project for inviting me here. So that's my name, that's my official job title within Climate Kick. And I'm just looking forward to taking the opportunity to tell you a little bit more about Climate Kick. What is our kind of mission, our vision, our core values? How does the Higher Education Institute fit, within that? And some of you maybe over the years have, had some dealings with Climate Kick, but we've changed quite a bit. So keep an open mind. So essentially, we are Europe's leading climate innovation agency. We say that ourselves, but we're all about how can we build innovation and community, to really tackle the climate challenge. And we do that across countries, regions, cities, and businesses. And at the core is very much about systems change. We are actually a not-for-profit. Our headquarters is in the Netherlands, but we have over 200 staff distributed across Europe. But actually, and we'll touch upon this a little later on, our innovation programs actually run worldwide. And as I said, really what's driving Climate Kick is this, belief that if we are to create the kind of radical change that's needed to address climate change, that this needs to be done through innovation, radical collaboration, and place-based approaches. And, we just basically want to make a climate resilient, beautiful future, which, who doesn't really? And kind of within that, our role very much is about how can we orchestrate solutions and learnings to make these kind of systems change happen at a pace that, will really address, the need. So as I say, we've been around for quite a while. We actually started, I think it was in 2010, and we were originally funded by the European Institute of Innovation and Technology. And we were, pretty much a standard, funding organisation. And we had a great time. We very much supported, innovation and skills building across Europe. We have some stats, which I'll also touch upon later on. But essentially, we realised whilst we were, having successes, they weren't, at the scale or the pace needed. And therefore, the complexity and the interconnectedness that, climate change demands, we needed to have a different approach. So hopefully you'll see that we've evolved. So as I said, I think the image has disappeared, but there's a little image there which basically shows the 4 areas, which I'll also touch upon later on. But essentially, we're all about how can we make kind of climate action locally. So it is all about place-based. And we very much believe, like I say, if we are to make, we need to have ambition. We need to address, the climate reality. And we do this through, it should be the Climate Academy, the EU missions, and venture entrepreneurship. And there's one more that I'm missing. But the diagram, if you get the slides, we'll fill that in. And so we believe we have a unique value proposition. So whilst we appreciate that technology, is important, but we actually think that if we, again, are going to make the change needed, that it's really about systemic, change and really about human transformation. And so this is where we very much believe about, making sure that we embrace innovation, but we have a role of where we're very much orchestrating not just single kind of points of entry or interventions, but actually portfolios of activity. And that through that, we can also offer transformational services, which will enable places to address climate change. And our track record, as I said, stems back from 2010. We have tested methodologies, and we also have ability to attract funds to help, create the innovation. So when we say systemic change, this is what we basically mean. We're on about connected innovations. We're about acting simultaneously, and to do this across a multitude of, multiple levers of change that will enable us to kind of create the innovation to happen. And these, if you think these are kind of aspects that you'll also see in the higher education initiative and also within the CinnovatE project itself. So we work with government agencies, corporates, and investors. We basically will pretty much work with everyone. We're very inclusive. And so this in areas, though, where it's really about climate ventures, how can we also support acceleration and incubators? How can we strengthen innovation ecosystems? And that's very much relevant for the higher education initiative. And we also provide strategic matchmaking and investment. And this is a slide that kind of summarizes what I've been kind of pulling out so far. We really want to move from incremental changes through to transformative. And our kind of core belief in this is around systems innovation. And so it's very much about finding those leverage points, as I've already kind of touched upon. And these can be across various different systems. And these are kind of the three pillars that we work within, which is cities and regions, land use and industry. And there's a lot of information on that slide, so I'll let you look at it at another time. As I mentioned, these are some of the stats that we've worked with over the years. We're always looking to increase that as well. As I mentioned, we work worldwide. It's not just Europe. So we're always looking to expand. Essentially, we're looking for the right kind of people that want to work with us to innovate and address climate change. One of our biggest mechanisms of change are called deep demonstrations. You might have heard of some of those. So this is where they're extremely large-scale, multi-year programs where we're implementing systems innovation. And this can be within countries, regions, cities, or value change. So what we're essentially looking to do is to work with, governments, industry actors, and to kind of pull funding together to address joint agenda setting and capability building. And one of these, I won't go into the detail around like the deep demonstration methodology because you'll have the slides to look at, but I wanted to jump to one of our deep demonstrations, which is around a circular, regenerative and low carbon economy in Slovenia. So within the Slovenian government, we've been working with them on a program to really, develop this kind of radical transition into climate neutrality. And through that, we've, again, like I said, worked with them to identify portfolios of interventions dependent on leverage points. And that has also involved capability building around circularity thinking and practical application. For those of you that have been involved in some of our cities work, we also have been leading on EU missions called Net Zero Cities, and won't go into a lot of detail because you'll have the slides, but essentially we are quite active on the cities front. We've also been working around the EU mission of adaptation to climate change as well. We have a big project on pathways to resilience, which is again around supporting regions and communities to co-design their climate resilient futures. And we've also been working on national platforms, which is really about breaking down the barriers, again, that cities need to tackle climate change. We have quite a huge program, actually, programs around climate entrepreneurship. You may have seen on some of our climate launch pads. We also do accelerators, but we have a very active climate entrepreneurship element of the organisation, which again is working not just across Europe, but is also active worldwide. And then we have these innovation clusters, which is again really about, kind of at the core of systems innovation is how do we bring different types of people together into one room in order to break down those barriers, but also lift intelligence to make the kind of innovation happen. Which brings us to the EIT Higher Education Initiative. So obviously CinnovatE sits within this. And the European Institute of Innovation and Technology essentially wants higher education institutes to become engines of innovation to realise the green, digital and inclusive society. So, not exactly challenging, but it has big goals. And it's part of the Horizon Europe and it also sits under the EIT Strategic Innovation Agenda. But we want to basically create systemic impact, and we want to engage with over 500 higher education initiatives. And the high-level ambitions through that is really about how can we build entrepreneurial innovation and capability at an institutional level? How can we strengthen integration into innovation ecosystems? So the initiative actually started in 2021, and including the current cohort, we've supported 112 projects through through 4 cohorts. So CinnovatE is one of 47 projects in the current cohort. And that actually brings together, I think it's like 620 organisations, and it's actually, again, bringing together 46 countries as well. And actually, the applications for cohort 5 are open. I think we opened last week. So you can have basically up to 2 million per project. So if you're interested, obviously talk to the CinnovatE project as well, but you can find details on that link as well. I'm aware I'm talking quite a bit, so I'm going to speed up. But I think we all know about how can we support investing for the 1.5 change. And so we have an investment arm as well. And we also have our community arm, which is, brings together 150 members. You can read the stats. A bit more about our community. And if you're probably more interested is in our partner network, which is around just over 450. And as we say, comes across from both like universities, corporates, and governments. And we also have a Climate Kick Academy, which is all about how can we actually do learning and education in a different way. We very much believe in blended learning and experimental learning. More details about that. We have a collaborative about systemic climate change. That's with some high-level partners, really trying to kind of push the agenda at a higher level. And to kind of, you'll be pleased to know, this is my last 2 slides. But essentially, what we're trying to do is make transformative change happen. And it's, as I say, it's really about how can we bring together learning knowledge to identify connections, but also identify synergies as well. And I wanted to bring us back to, what is at the core of Climate Kick. It's about how do we support innovation ecosystems, about connecting diverse actors, who generally don't come together. But, through that, we can foster collaboration. We can bring innovation that wouldn't normally surface, which can help us build these circular and climate resilient economies. And, that's very much in the Higher Education Institute initiative, and it's also in the CinnovatE project. What we will be doing later today is, panels where, again, we're bringing voices together in a setting that wouldn't normally happen, to really, learn from the wisdom that's in the room. So I thank you for listening to me. We will share the slides, and I'm around all day, so if you want to pick my brain, more than welcome to. I won't have all the answers, but I can try and find them for you.
Thank you, Kate.
Thank you.
All right. Anna, we can start with panel 1.
So let's start with panel 1. Thank you for all the introductions and the presentations. I think we're much focused and aligned now. So this is panel 1. The title of panel 1 is Planting the Seed, Staff Training and Curricular Change or Curriculum Change. I like the idea of planting the seed, and I think that throughout the day we aim to find ways of flourishing, or seeing how nature flourishes from that seed. Let me introduce the people that we will be speaking now in the panel. We will be speaking about the things we have already implemented, willing to share with you and trying to find synergies along the day. So I am surrounded by Morten Skjelbred, who is a research and development advisor at North University. He also leads the tech transfer office. And I'm giving you the details of the people so that you can see how we come from different schools. And so the cohorts that we work with or to whom we need to transfer our knowledge or the implementation of CinnovatE is different. We also have Eglė Brezgytė from the Lithuanian School of Business or Business College. She is the coordinator of projects. We've got a business school here. Then we have Giles and Tom from the AA. Tom Raymont and Giles. Bruce. From the AA. Of course, this is a School of Architecture, so our cohort are students of architecture. And then we have Matan, who's an architect and works at IE, which is a School of Business, but he comes from the School of Architecture. So having presented everyone, do I just click here? No. Thanks. So everyone's been presented. The idea is that we run through the projects that we have each implemented so far, and let's see what discussions arise. I'm guessing they have to do with how to implement or maybe how we find connections between us, but let's see. So I'll start with the explanation of the implementation of a couple of courses that have happened here at the AA. It's Madaster platform and digital tools staff training. These are two courses that we have already run. They run right before we started this academic term. Madaster platform, you may know of it. It is a professional platform. This was a course delivered by the Madaster people, so we contacted the company and they provided a training session for the staff, so this is directly to us. We had 4 quite intense sessions. This is a platform that aims to promote circularity. They have a huge database, and then you import your data, let's not say building, but you import your data, and it maps all of your components against this huge database. And so it gives you information on the materials, on the impact of those components, and it provides a report, so like a material passport. You may be touching upon that later. So this is a training that staff received with the aim of not only, of course, empowering the teachers, but finding of ways of implementing this in the curriculum, and Tom and Giles will be telling about that later. Regarding the other course that we as teacher staff received was digital tools. These are digital tools that again were aimed at having discussions within the teachers about circularity, environmental analysis, and design innovation. If you can see the 4 courses, we learned about parametric design, or we had discussions about parametric design, about climate studio, topological optimization, so optimization of layout of structures, of material. And we had a lovely internal discussion about artificial intelligence. These 4 courses, whereas the first one we had the people from outside teaching us. In this case, it was with internal people. All of us are from the ETS department, which is the Environment and Technical Studies department. And we're a bunch of interesting professionals. So we all have, apart from the teaching, we have our studios or we work in a professional environment. And I think we all have quite a lot to share. So whereas that one, the Madaster, was by someone from outside, the second one was shared with us. How do we plan, or how have we already implemented all of this? For the Madaster, they will be talking about it. For the digital tools, I wanted to show you different situations in which in the AA, at the AA, we sit with students, we help them, we have conversations. And so all of those tools or conversations or softwares that we've learned in those initial courses, they don't mean we have to necessarily implement them in a course, but they allow us to have a conversation with students throughout any of the situations in which we give feedback to them, which means we can point them out to something that exists, or we can point them out to an optimization tool that may be helpful for their models, for their ideas, for their, etc. So I think this is wrapping up the first training courses that we teachers received. Let me move on, and I'm sorry I'm speaking a lot, but I have two different presentations. So the next one is a course that I had the honor to lead, but I can tell you the brains are all in Nacho, which is called ETS3 Masterclasses. This is a course that we've just finished. We're still marking the students, but it's just finished. And it was it has been aimed to third-year students. Now, it's important to understand that these students, when they're third years, after running this course, or somehow in parallel with running this course, they prepare what's called a technical thesis or a technical project. And that technical project comes from their understanding of their unit work. So it's an idea that they have, that they spark. And the aim of these masterclasses was to allow them to have different thoughts, different research, different innovation ideas, and that they could find what resonated with them and empower them in that design or project thesis that they need to do. Thanks to the CinnovatE grant, we came up with an incredible panel of invited guests. We had Rod Heiss, who used to be the director at Caruso St. John's. He's now teaching at the AA an incredible course on restoration. We had Amin Taha. We had Roger Bolshouston. If you can see, what we did with these panels and the next three is linking the word structures, not the word, the concept of structures with circularity and reuse, with carbon, with Amin Taha talking about stone, as opposed to later having Roger Bolshausen talking about structures and earth. So we did not give them an agenda. We gave them a lot of different agendas, all of them with the approach of circularity, innovation, people who are now in the professional world and they have, they've been doing their research, like Eduard Cabay. He teaches at the AC, the Institute of Architecture in Catalonia, in Barcelona, and he came with his 3D printed of local clay, which is something they do in Barcelona. We had the pleasure of hosting Anne Heringer, who talked, and I think delighted the students with her talk about community. And then finally, we had Philip Block, sorry, I don't read and I don't think at the same time, with structures and geometry. All of this, as I told you, is aimed, these are some images of the technical thesis, technical project that students do, in the third year. They come up with incredible artifacts, proposals, ideas, all of them technically supported with their ideas, sketches, calculations, research. So the aim of that series of masterclasses was aimed to make them think, research further, and start embedding a different type of thinking so that the thesis that's now coming along, which is led by Kenny, thanks for coming, Kenny, is somehow rooted in incredible new innovation thinking. Right. I think now the floor is on Morten. Okay. You tell us about the teaching you've been doing at
I'll try. I'm sorry, but this is not my project. So I have a list I have to read to you from those who have established this course. Hope this is okay. Yep. Oh, the other way, direction. Yeah. The purpose of this course is to strengthen educators' capability to support students in navigating complexity, addressing sustainability challenges, and engaging creatively with change. To achieve this, the course blends the inner development goals, the IGD, framework with practical, pedagogically, and innovation methods. This combination helps educators develop both their inner capacity and their concrete teaching practice. Through the online modules, participants are introduced to key principles of innovation and entrepreneurial teaching, along with approaches for integrating sustainability and circular economy perspective into their courses. The in-person workshop builds on the foundation, offering hands-on experience with challenge-based learning, co-creation techniques, reflective tools, and facilitation methods that can be immediately applied with their own classroom. The course strengthens the educators in several important ways. It helps them build a deeper sense of grounding and clarity in times of change, drawing on the IGD framework to foster reflection, openness, and resilience. It supports educators to become more confident using creative and innovative teaching methods, regardless of discipline. It gives them practical tools to design active, engaging, and collaborative learning experience which invite students to explore real-world problems. And it offers accessible ways to connecting sustainability and circular economy them to different subject areas through meaningful learning activities. Yes. This course is a 10-hour professional development program delivered through a combination of online learning modules and a full-day in-person workshop. It has been developed in close collaboration with Engage and the Craft Sustainability Center, who bring strong expertise in transformative learning, innovation, pedagogy, and sustainability education. For CinnovatE, this course plays a strategic role in development innovation capacity with higher education. It directly supports Work Package 4 by enabling staff training and competency development, both central KPIs in the work package. It also contributes to the broader structural ambitions in Work Package 2 by helping to build a more innovative and future-oriented teaching culture at Norway University. A key strength of the course is that it's highly transferable. The concept, teaching methods, and learning resources can be adapted by partners across the consortium, opening opportunity for shared training programs, cross-institutional workshop, and potential joint initiatives with Phase 2. The intention is not only to build capacity at Norway University, but to contribute to a broader ecosystem for innovation, sustainability-oriented teaching within CinnovatE. In summary, competence of change for educators equip educators with both the inner foundation and the practical methods needed to teach for a changing world. It supports innovation, creativity, and sustainability across disciplines and aligns closely with the overarching goals of CinnovatE.
Thank you.
Okay.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Let's move. Giles and Tom, the floor is yours.
Hello. Yeah, okay. So I'm going to do 2.5 minutes. Tom will do 2.5 minutes.
In between us, so that's right.
Yeah. Okay, so Tom and I co-lead a course in the second year with Joanna Gonzalez, Chiara Tufnelli, Danae Polivlu, Dalia Matsura, Amadeus Gafoni, and Camilla Luigi. The course is important because it's a moment in the students' education where they get to obtain knowledge and then apply it through design. And in previous years, we have always taken it from the scale of the site to the scale of the material. But this year we flipped it because of the emphasis on circularity. So we really wanted to start from a material starting point and really work back out to the site. And so the students were introduced to a range of materials under 3 categories: materials which related to structure, materials which related to thermal performance, and materials which related to weathering and enclosure from the weather. And essentially we adopted a methodology for teaching whereby the students worked with these materials over a series of iterations, developing design proposals which looked at each material and what it might do. So the structural material for the enclosure, the thermal material for the thermal envelope, and the enclosing for the skin of the building. And that meant different things for different teams because every team had a different material palette to work from. So one with steel, one with timber, and other materials associated. And it was very interesting because in addition to providing the students with the opportunity to design with those materials, we gave them tools to understand and measure that design. Things like U-value thermal performance and new tools, as mentioned by Anna, Madaster, giving them an insight as to the overall embodied carbon of their proposals. And then it came to the question of environment, and through an engagement with Matan, we decided, why do one when you can do two? So we decided, wouldn't it be interesting to ask the students to consider their construction in two places, Bedford Square and Plaza Juan Miró? And so that's what they did. They really explored not only the construction of their how these materials are assembled, but more critically how they are disassembled, and how that disassembly might facilitate a relocation of the proposal from one side to the other, as in from Bedford Square and the cold climate of the UK to the sunny, balmy climate of Madrid. And this was a very interesting process and one that the students really engaged with, because it allowed them really to understand materials from the very fundamental of where the material comes from, but also what happens maybe over the life cycle of that design. I think I'll finish by saying that the measure of, I think, success is always in the reaction of the students. It's wonderful to see students engage so creatively with such an amazing array of design ideas from these approaches.
3 minutes. Are we running 15 minutes ahead? Is that? Can I use some of that? Anyway, let's see. Yes. So, thank you, Giles. I think that gave you an overview of the course that we provided, and I'm building on that to talk about how that might actually lead to the kind of circular city that we, I think, all want to bring about. And perhaps we might start by just reflecting on what the circular city is probably not, and which a lot of architectural discourse and urban questions might center around issues of building form and effect that have previously been talked about a lot. Often the city architectural discourse talks about what do we need today, what is the fashion of today, the profit of today, and it doesn't have very much long-term thinking. And of course, we're painfully aware that we're living in cities with astonishingly high CO2 emissions. So the course, I think, aims at providing students with 3 forms of applied thinking that address those kinds of issues in the city today. And applied thinking meaning both values, knowledge, and development of ideas in their own projects, so that it's not just a point of view, but actually a series of tools and a way of moving forward in a design process. So the first of those that I think is really critical, thinking with your hands, something that perhaps doesn't happen enough. Perhaps I think in the kind of academic discourses, the craftsman and the maker, even the builder, is sometimes perhaps rather low down on the kind of list of what's valued, and that's something that we hope to bring back and are bringing back with inviting students to engage with materials very directly. I mean, if there's no hope of a circular city without really a deep understanding of materials. And secondly, moving away from architecture as products into architecture as processes, that all of this work is time-based, whether that's over the course of a day, from sunlight and wind and environmental factors, how they change, or in the case of moving the buildings from one place, as we did, designing it first in London and then looking at how to take it apart and move it to Madrid. And these might be timescales of a day or a month, but of course we're also asking our students to look back very deeply into the past of where did materials come from, how did they originate, where are they going, and where might they end up in the much longer term future. And the third piece of applied thinking is really the carbon literacy that is critical to all of these discussions and is not always actually explicit in the circular city idea. Circularity doesn't always mean lower carbon, and that's important to kind of notice the differences. But I hope we've given our students the starting point for a much greater literacy of carbon, that they start to think about their materials not just as, not just their buildings as images and pieces of sculpture, but almost databases of materials that they have collated together. So lastly, perhaps just to summarize that, I think all three of these together invite us to treat the design project and the role of the architect as a coordinator of flows, coordinators of flows of energy, flows of materials, and flows of carbon. And perhaps those flows are, in some ways, rather chaotic and misaligned at this point in history. And in the circular city, those kinds of alignments need to be transformed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's just have one more. Sorry, there you go. Oh, no, a couple more.
All right. Yeah, I think we have two more.
Yeah.
So I'll show the twin course that we had, that we ran at IE, kind of a twin course because the content was a bit different and the format is a bit different as well. But the course is called Construction Systems and Applications. It's a second-year undergrad architecture course, and the idea is to familiarize students or to give them kind of the foundation of working with material systems, thinking about material properties, and also thinking about environmental factors. So we looked at these kind of two parallel directions about material behavior and about environmental factor, with an emphasis in material behavior on castable materials, on materials like clay, like concrete, and kind of embracing the imperfections of working with castable materials, also in the context of circularity, thinking about reusable formwork, for example. In terms of the environmental factors, we try to look at kind of a broad view at environmental factors, so not only thermal properties, but also things like daylighting, and even sensorial factor like smell and touch. So the course has had 8 milestones, and they revolved around 3 kind of topical clusters. The first one was ideation, where the students really think about their assemblies and how they will come together. Production looks at materializing those assemblies that they ideate. And then finally, adaptation looks at the circular component of this, thinking about relocation, about disassembly, and about reuse of formwork, for example. So the first step of that was kind of an immersion or experimentation workshop where the students looked at natural waste streams from things like sawdust, for example, from an adjacent mill, or coconut husk fibers, and tried to integrate them into the materials that they were working with, into these castable materials like clay, etc. And then we did some structural testing for these samples, just to kind of get the students into the mode of production and working with their hands. Then the students were assigned with case studies that each one of these case studies kind of celebrates a different environmental factor. So there's factors like wind and heat and etc. But there's also factors like time, for example, like wildlife or insects, or smell and touch. So I'll focus on a group that looked at insects and wildlife as the environmental factor. And all these case studies that they were looking at were kind of smaller buildings, just because the building that they were working on was small as well. So the site that they worked with primarily was Plaza Juan Miró in Madrid, in kind of the northern central part of Madrid, kind of an empty, relatively empty and flat plaza. And the program that they had, that was also the program that Giles and Tom had in their course, was kind of a 3-person design studio, so a very small building that can be moved around eventually. So this group studied the variety of insects or the variety of kind of small wildlife in Madrid, and designed a kind of a small half donut-shaped building to house those insects in the envelope of the building. Then they worked on developing modules that would allow this inhabitation of insects. So they studied, what kind of spaces those insects would prefer, like butterflies, bees, etc. Then they worked on prototype production. So here starts to come in the circular component of thinking about formwork that can be eventually reused and can allow this kind of variation of openings in those modules. Then they worked on kind of full-scale production of these modules and to look at all the different challenges that could come with producing these elements in full scale. Then they looked at the assembly logic of these elements, how they could come together in a way that they could eventually be taken apart with dry connection, and to allow this variation of insect inhabitation. At this point, we introduced also the London site. So you can see there on the right-hand side, Giles and Tom walking us around the square here, showing us the park, for example. So that was very nice for the students. And here this particular group looked at the variety of insects in London now, and tried to adjust their designs to the local wildlife that exists here in the city, and also adjusting the geometry of their small pavilion to work better with the London climate. They looked at the carbon footprint of this relocation from Madrid to London, including making an inventory of all the components in this small building. And then finally, they looked at kind of synthesizing all of that into a small mock-up that looked at the corner of this envelope, and again tried to look at all the challenges that relate to production, and they're using the same kind of formwork for this entire mock-up. Thanks.
Okay, from architecture to business. So I'm Eglė Brezgytė. I'm from Lithuania Business College, and within CinnovatE project we had a chance also tailor and start to establish new training programs. So during the first phase of the project, we developed 2 80-hour training programs for ISCAD 6-level students, covering these following topics: reverse logistics in the circular economy, green fintech solutions, generative AI in business, and sustainable human resource management. Each of these subjects covers 3 ECTS. Why these programs are important in the context of Lithuania and in the project? So first of all, these new training programs bridge academic knowledge with real business needs, and they help to position Lithuania Business College as a leader in practical, innovation-driven education. The main features of these study programs are full English language, industry-aligned, practical hands-on learning, international standards, career-ready graduates focus. Why these study programs matter, and again, I will repeat why it's important taking into account Lithuanian context and landscape. So these study programs, first of all, directly support CinnovatE's vision and strengthening Lithuanian digital business ecosystem. Students going to gain essential skills in sustainability, circular economy, and green finance that will prepare them for emerging industries. Why reverse logistics, and why this study program also is important. Reverse logistics plays a crucial role in circular economy first, by reducing waste and pollution. And globally, logistics operation cause around 22% of air pollution. So efficiency and sustainability are key. The course is going to teach how AI-driven tools can help optimize supply chains and minimize environmental impact. Green fintech. Again, you need to know the context that Lithuania is one of Europe's fintech leaders with over 270 active fintech companies. And this course explores how green finance supports sustainable investments, help business meet environmental regulations, and drives climate-focused innovations. Generative AI in business. What we are going to bring new with this study program. This will try to integrate AI into real business models, first of all, boosting efficiency, creativity, and competitiveness. I didn't mention in the beginning that we are going to prepare 2 new study programs, 80 hours, and 3 ECTS. But what is done now, until now, we accredited already 3 subjects and starting to integrate them into our curricula. Again, and why it's important in the framework of our CinnovatE project and for locally and for Lithuania. So with these study programs, with the circularity, with the focus to circular economy in business, fintech, green fintech subjects, we are aligning education with the sustainability and technological progress. This is how we are helping to shape greener, smarter, and more innovative future.
Thanks everyone for the presentations. There we are. So I think now it's the time to have a little conversation and also invite you, if you want to be part of the conversation or if you have any questions. Given that this is not about architecture, we are different institutions, and actually I think that's the beauty of it. We can refrain from talking about architecture. But I think given that the title of the panel was Planting the Seed, I'd like to ask if you think your courses have been successful in planting that seed to start with. Then we can talk about how we make that being embedded in the students or in your cohorts process. But do you think you've planted the seed and it has been successful so far? Okay, you go. You go for being cheeky.
Well, how do we know, right? How do we know? How do we know? I think it's a very important question to reflect on, and it's not an easy one to answer, and I certainly won't be saying, yes, for sure. You plant lots of seeds, some of them grow and some of them die, right? I guess that's our metaphor that we are using for now. I don't know if it's exactly the right metaphor, but it's maybe it will do. I'm sure that we can't predict the future as to what our students go on to do, but I don't think that it's an impossible task or an impossible question. I think we can expect the teaching to be effective if it has connected with those students at the time, if it's something that they want to engage with, that they want to learn about, then it's already, actually the seed is already planted. Mm-hmm. We're probably not planting any seeds. The seeds are there. We're probably watering and fertilizing. And if they are there and we're putting on the right fertilizer and the right water at the right amount of time, then maybe we have a chance. And of course, we can see it growing over the time that we are with the students in the course, and we can get feedback from them. And then our tender seedlings go out into the world, and who knows what horrible things happen to them in that very messy and dangerous world out there. But I think it's probably through identifying with them and maybe having a bit more courage to talk about values and actually what people feel and care about, and not always talk about techniques and practices, but so that actually it has a solid basis and a likelihood to last.
One of the measures of success that you mentioned had to do with how the students react to the work they have to do, the outcome of what they had to do, the spirit reflected in a class or in a jury when they bring their work together, and maybe those values they come up. Did you identify that engagement, or that you connected with those values that are important for them?
I think one thing I'd say is that in the 15 years or so I've been involved in versions of this course, we're now at a point where students come with an awareness of many issues, and they come with a hunger to understand how they could, through their chosen route, contribute meaningfully. So that mightn't have been the case 15 years where there maybe wasn't an awareness, and they chose to not go that route. But now everybody knows. So I think that what's very clear is that when you equip students with a set of knowledge which shows that actually decisions can be made, which are meaningful, and you give them tools maybe to evaluate the extent of that contribution, then I think what they understand is that even for a small pavilion of the like we've been addressing, different decisions have very different outcomes, and there is a role for them in the very large question that everybody is dealing with. So I think that engagement comes from feeling that your actions matter. And so what's very clear over a course like this is, the pride that a student puts in something in which they've invested not only emotionally, but also it's a vehicle for to demonstrate that that there is value in those efforts because they can prove it. Yeah. So I think that's very heartening to see, and it's the energy is wonderful, I have to say. So I'd say the seeds are planted. We watered them, maybe.
Can I ask if you have had similar, just jumping to the business school or another type of cohort, do you also have that sensation?
I hope so. I haven't been able to ask them what happened with this course, but as an advisor for innovation, I hope that our educators and former student, future student, can use the impact of their research to make changes for the society. And if you think about sustainability and collaboration with the industry, I think this is a good seed, this course.
Thank you. Eglė, have you had feedback as coordinator of project, have you had feedback, and is there an engagement? Is there a connection with the students that resonate with them?
Yeah, but it's too early. This stage is too early to to say it and to analyze, as well as I mentioned, we launched formal programs, and it has a bit different path. We should follow it. It should align with the study process, semesters, and so on. So we will have first evaluation assessment in January. When we will have more information and data. But of course, we should look holistic, and my next presentations will be about structures, innovation structures, and for startups that we are going to launch again also in our institution. So these approaches, having this structure, having these formal study programs and non-formal that I not mentioned, I think that will bring really valuable effect.
Okay.
First of all, to our students, yes.
Thank you. I was concerned that some of your answers could be, we've planned it too late, or that we're late on this. Hopefully, no one has. Matan, what's your point of view? Because it could be saying, listen. No, but it could be. Sometimes we're just very late, so the mindset of the students already somewhere else.
Right.
So.
I mean, I very much hope that not. I mean, I think that on my end, my hope is that the seeds have been sowed in like two fronts. The first one is helping the students overcome the fear factor of taking their ideas from theory into practice, or actually, materializing their ideas and seeing that there are consequences to decisions that they make, in design studio or in history theory classes. So I think that is kind of one front that I hope that they came to some meaningful realization, and the other one is the impact of their actions, their impact of their design actions. I mean, the very simple carbon calculation that we did in the course related really just to transportation, and already just transportation had huge environmental impacts, and the students got to this realization of, wow, I'm moving my tiny pavilion from Madrid to London, and there's like 1,000 kilograms of CO2 that are associated with that move. So I hope that they also help them to realize that there are impacts to their actions, to these design actions.
Interesting. I think. Oh, sorry.
Can I add one more thing? Just that I think it's an interesting dynamic that we sit across this kind of divide between the students who are in education and ourselves, many of us who are in practice. Mm-hmm. And I think they come to us either explicitly or kind of implied in the course what's going on out there? What is that world that you are practicing and we are practicing and that we are heading towards at some point? And I think we have to be very careful how we present that. In some ways, if it comes across as, hey, the future circular city is waiting for you, come, they have a very good bullshit filter, and they're not going to accept, we've put projects up in presentations and said, oh, look at this sustainable building, and they're like, whoa, no, what's all that steel doing there? What's all, they're alive to that. So I think the state of today and the future that's expecting them can't be presented as a kind of rosy utopia, but neither can it be presented as a fatalistic disaster, which is, I think, perhaps the one that kind of hangs around us, the media, and them much more as a kind of anxiety that what's the point, right? When you mentioned it's too late, what's the point of learning all these things if actually, we're really screwed? So I think that's where we have to find the line between those two and say, actually, there are people who care like you, and there are things that are happening. This is happening, this step has taken, and you will be welcomed into a community of people that are trying to move in this direction.
Thank you. You have mentioned, I can't remember which of you mentioned, that you did realize that the student did engage when they saw that their actions mattered, even if it's now on paper, not in a professional world. During the workshop yesterday, I'm not sure if I was discussing with you or with some of you, and we were trying to find a way, because we want to plant the seed, we want them to engage, and we want this to make a difference. All of these courses, all of these curriculums that we're trying to change or to implement, we want them to be effective. But it's very hard to know the mechanism for effectiveness, because you can plant the seed as we're trying. We can give them, you talked about you gave them the vocabulary, you gave them all the literacy that they need, which is fantastic. But how can this be meaningful? And not only what we're teaching them, even, for us, it's even the grant. We want this grant to be successful. We want this to have an impact in the school. And one of the ideas, but it's hard to put names to it, that we came up with is, let's do something where they can see that their actions mattered. Maybe it was you mentioning it, right? But if you put maybe numbers to it, or that they can see that they can do something that then has an impact on a community, has a positive impact, right? Maybe that is a way of making it meaningful to them. So all of these curriculum changes, new courses, trying to bring new ideas like we did in the masterclass, bringing people who are out there and testing their ideas so that this becomes meaningful for them. We have the whole day to discuss from the seed into the final ideas. I was wondering if anyone from the audience has a question. Yes, Xavier? Does that work? No.
Hello, good morning. Thank you very much. One thing that we face in the industry nowadays with sustainability, circularity, reuse, and blah, 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 is the green premium that we pay for it. How you think that we should teach the students to understand that the green premium should be zero?
Could I add something else to that?
Yeah, please.
Because I think I had a similar question. We're sitting here in Camden. I live in Camden. And a lot of the policies that are being pushed through by Camden, nearly more than any other borough in London, are actually pushing up lots and lots of prices of cost of living. And a lot of people are feeling quite angry about what they would say is a green agenda happening. How, as teachers or people that work in this, how do you square that? Because there is a kind of cause and effect. So I think it's maybe connected to that question in some way.
Tough ones.
Also, I'd like to say, I think that would be a good subject for further conversations in the school, because I think it's very important.
Maybe I'd just say, to a large extent within the academic environment, we are shielded from money, and I think that's a privilege. But at the same time, the value of engaging through design is that students understand another quantity, the amount of stuff it takes to do something. And I think very often engagement with numbers doesn't come easily in creative environments. People are a little bit put off by it, but whether the quantity be money or whether the quantity be the volume of a material to achieve a certain performance, I think the best thing we can do within these walls maybe is to demystify, I think you used the word fear, which I think is good, just to make people at ease with, I suppose, making objective measures of their proposals. And through that objectivity to understand, as Tom mentioned, that some metrics have to be measured across a much longer span rather than the short span of immediate purchase of some add-on, or some material decision. I think the second thing I would just say is I think it really matters we all come from the practice. And so I think part of what we all do is we bring that practice into the walls. And I always use the word we try and practice what we preach, and we try and preach what we practice. So I think what the students hopefully see is how outside of that academic environment, these kind of challenges are, through those real projects, addressed. And that the answer isn't always perfect. That at the end of the day, there is a kind of a best version within the constraints. So whilst we don't talk explicitly about money or we don't talk about that, we do try and be honest about the processes of those projects so that they're not seeing everything through a rose-tinted glass. Whether they pick up on that, I'm not entirely sure because they are only students, but I do think it's important that we do give them that input for them to draw their own conclusions.
Thank you. When I look into the organization, no, okay. When I look to the organization of this table, and I don't mean about the slide presentation, but how you're physically seated in this table. So we have like the architectural side and the business side on the other part. I don't know if it was intentional or not. I'm sure that it wasn't. But would you explain the twin programs that you developed together, AA and IE? It was very, very interesting and very natural. No? So it's kind of very natural to develop this type of workshop, this type of joint programs. But my question is, how do you think that you can involve with the business side, because it's more difficult? And also it will help in some way to answer the question of the green premium, and maybe you can move from green premium to green discount if you put in the conversation of the table the business side. So how do you think that this can make it possible? So you have made the first step. That is not easy. I mean, I'm saying that it's easy to make this type of joint program, but we know that it's not. It means a lot of organization. But I think that the second step, when you involve like the business side, then you have a better conversation, and then we can keep answering those questions.
It seems to me that maybe the key aspect here, when we talk about circularity and this kind of, making these bridges between the design side and the business side, is to have a life cycle thinking about what we produce, and I think that also addresses the kind of the green premium question. I mean, if we think about the measures we take in order to increase circularity, we think about not just in the immediacy of constructing a building or buying an asset. We think about them throughout the entire lifespan of the building, and how designing for longevity, for example, can allow us to have buildings for a longer time, or designing for flexibility can allow us to make modifications that would be more affordable over time. I think that's when this kind of connection between the design side and the business side could happen. I don't think it has happened yet. I mean, I think we're still a bit siloed in that regard, but I think maybe that's the key to thinking about it. Do you want to say it?
Yeah, that's actually in the title of our project. So I think it's an integration of skills and competences, technical and soft skills. So that could be the approach: integration and combination of soft and technical skills. And as I said, the answer might be in the title of our project. That's Circular Cities Through Education and Entrepreneurship. That is one of the main aspects, I would say, in CinnovatE.
I think there is and has been a lot of interest in cross-disciplinary collaboration for a number of years, but maybe it still doesn't go far enough, and it's possibly, there are some obvious barriers to that. An architecture school, we now give degrees in architecture, and there's an expectation that therefore you should learn the skills of an architect. And in the past, perhaps when we didn't give degrees, there was a bit more flexibility, and maybe there were opportunities for students to learn things that didn't necessarily contribute exactly to that award, but maybe allowed them to move sooner into maybe an architectural business role or a political role, policy-making role. And I think that it is needed, and we should probably be looking at ways in which those barriers still exist or could be broken down further. It's great to be sitting at a table here, but it probably should be a business student and an architecture student sitting at this table and talking about how, and a history student or a geography student talking about how actually their cross-disciplinary practices might actually allow something new to emerge. So I think that siloing is still very much around, and we continue to try to look for ways to break that down. I think the green premium question is very difficult. I think it partly comes out of some political issues in that sustainability as an aim, I think, has been put on to individuals more than on businesses and on organizations. The idea of, oh, what's your carbon footprint? What are you doing? Everyone, put PV panels on your house. It's been individualized. I think that's deliberate and maybe even malicious and unfortunate, and needs to be kind of fought against, because it's not only individuals who are going to stump up the cash to make the change. But I think that if we look at how culture has changed in the past, and that when you come into wanting to practice in a way that is not suited to the current environment, it's different. It tends to cost more somehow to make that happen. That's one way to make it happen. But the other way is perhaps through these cross-disciplinary changes that start to break down, change policy, that change the environment in which we're trying to practice sustainable architecture, so that dissolves the green premium from that side.
Thank you. Yeah, actually, following up with a couple of things that you said, Tom, and linking with Egle's presentation, because you were presenting the green fintech, for instance, and saying that there's partnerships with businesses, researchers, and that has an impact on regulations, and there is like a back and forth on regulation, no? And that is happening, and sometimes I feel like we say we need to work in a transdisciplinary manner, meaning putting in the same table two people that are from two different disciplines. At the same time, as architects, we receive a lot of top-down values that you were mentioning, the question of values, that have been discussed in other spheres. And we kind of receive them, we problematize them or not, more or less. So I think that sometimes there is a level of implicit collaboration in the fact of receiving certain frameworks and working with them or not, or against them, or within them. And that, I think it could be an interesting way to also not trying to always kind of pin it down to a personal interaction in a room between an architectural student and a business student, which is beautiful, but I think perhaps it's difficult to scale up, and also to discuss what it means to be conscious of what is happening at the level of business decisions that for us are quite opaque, no? Because we don't know how they are made, or we don't follow up as we should, no? Like, is there a possibility of a discussion that is perhaps a bit less bottom-up and more about how are these discussions happening in other disciplines, and how that conversation can tie it up, and how do we position our own values, and we still train architects, no? Because as you said, clearly we are doing that. I don't know, just to put it on the table, because sometimes, again, it's not about fatalistic or positivistic, it is about what is actually in the field and what is more implicit and what is more explicit, perhaps, and working within that. Just, I think it's like a long-term question. I don't expect some sort of revelation, but yeah, if you can, some of you elaborate on that.
Do you want to give an example of top-down values that
yeah, I mean, for instance, no, I'm not saying that there are like top-down values. Well, you said we care, no? You use that like we care, and then because we care, and the students, and then Giles continued to say the students, it matters, and I completely get it. But for instance, what is that care? Like, what is it made of? What are the components of that care that come more from what you were teaching, or from an understanding that, as you said, we're screwed, so we care about that, but what is the purpose? Like, I think the agendas are different, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, I don't know if that's enough of an example. I guess we could go, or you can put an example.
Very clever.
Help.
Well, I think I'm not going to answer to Anna.
Sorry, I mean, maybe the idea of value. And I think in Madaster was conceived as a way of, keep track of every single component material. And then clients can use it to understand how much money they have in a building as an asset. No, so perhaps the idea of value, what in relation to Xavier's question, the things that are now costly might not be costly in 30 years, and I think we need to really teach with that level of anticipation. We are teaching people that in 30 years, hopefully, might be decision makers. And in 30 years, maybe there is a carbon tax, well, maybe, possibly, or maybe we cannot trade with other countries, so we really need to rely on what's in our within our borders and keep things in motion. So the idea of value in the future might change, and I think it is now the moment to teach the students, because they will become decision makers in 2 decades, maybe a bit earlier. And I think platforms like Madaster, they include that idea of value at some point. No? So just to leave it there, I think perhaps as ideas of value changes, we need to anticipate and train for, many, many years ahead.
Thank you, Nacho. I think Xavier wants to answer back.
I just wonder how many people may be dead in 30. How many people would be dead of poverty in 30 years? It is a very important question. And just on one other point, I don't want to hog this too much, because I think what's been said on the panel is very interesting. But one of the side effects that has been going on is a redistribution of wealth up the way that's been taken off people involved. And it seems to be that there's some sort of abuse of a caring system that's trying to intervene and do things. But at the same time, there's a huge redistribution of wealth going up the way. And people at the bottom are being drained. And I think that would be difficult to get people on the side of what's being suggested. That's all.
Okay, thank you very much for the answers. I was more on the side of which tools we're giving to the students to develop that, okay? Because I think that nowadays they are facing a market that is not caring too much, and we cannot leave these aspects to the ethics of who is a designer, who is a developer, to go ahead with these things. So we all know in this room that do the right thing is what we have to do. So, for example, probably you know that in Netherlands they develop a circularity index, where Leti took it to develop their index in circularity as well. That is based on mass. The more mass you have, the less circular you are, right? So, without developing favelas and giving the students enough knowledge and tools to develop regular houses or regular buildings, how we are able to develop these kind of skills on the students, that they are providing just new architecture, new things. We need to try new things with the students to come up with new ideas. Because if we keep doing what we have been doing, but just changing the source of materials, it's not enough. So thinking like, for example, how we change the level of comfort that we have nowadays in buildings is something that we can criticize. It's something that we can challenge with the students and see how far we can go. So I was more on the side of designing rather than the world that is out there that is very complex. But we are here giving tools, giving things, giving options to the students that I think that we can quite a lot, and not only talking to resource things with reused materials. That's my point.
Is it on? Let me see. No? Yes. Yes? Okay. Good. I think there are a couple of interconnected topics. One, just because it's the last comment, at IE we actually visit quite a lot of offices in London and in the Netherlands, particularly in the last years. We have noticed in the last couple of years, as a result of the situation you have just described that actually offices that are relatively sizable are starting to build their own tools in the lack of commercially viable tools that attends to the early design process. Because I mean, a tool like Madaster, which we discussed yesterday, is extremely useful, especially when you go into like a, let's say, thorough technical assessment of a large life cycle of a building. But it's true that we do not have the tools, or they're not widespread to actually impact the design decisions at the very early stage in a way that is quantitative. We're based on integrating the technical knowledge on a creative system without the quantitative tool in a way. So, for instance, a couple of months ago, there was this carbon space tool by MVRDV that is made by themselves. It's open source. And there are a few other firms actually doing that same thing. Not that everything needs to be related to that, but that's just one comment. The other comment, and it's also related to that, is to Anna's comment. And we were yesterday as well discussing in the workshop with AA an initiative to try to build some entrepreneurial, I'll call it incubator for the sake of a more defined stage. And we were having a conversation about how difficult it is for some architecture students to go through a business education, like whether that's catchy or fancy for them or not, and whether they would be able to, finish it. But I think there's a key to that in understanding how that business education what would be the success factor of that. We as architects are used, and I think we do that quite well, to acknowledge a situation in which we need to know enough about the technical domain so that we can search the right partner to actually co-create with us, hopefully as soon as possible, within, I don't know, structural, energy systems, whatever, social engagement. And we're not at all used to do that same thing with the business side.
Correct.
And it doesn't mean we need to be able to craft a full financial plan for a real estate complex project. It means that we need to understand and we need to know how to put together the value pieces of a project in correlation with the technical, the environmental, the structural parts. Nobody would think about today the structural premium of a building. It makes absolutely no sense. That's probably, hopefully if we do things right in a couple of decades, nobody would think about the green premium, right? But I think that's the key. And that's the kind of business knowledge that we should instill in students. When we think about entrepreneurship, it's not like making sure that you can be the chief financial officer of a bank, but how can you frame the value questions also, and not only, but also from the business side? And Matan's comment was also related to that. If you change the value quantification from a short term, which I know administration and also oftentimes those that develop projects cannot afford or cannot just have that mindset. But if you enlarge that, even from the numbers perspectives, things change, I think. So, well, those are a few comments that was kind of connecting.
Yeah, there is time for you, Javier. Do you want to wrap up? Yes. We're going to have Javier and then we will close the panel.
First of all, forgive my speech. It's much deteriorated by present circumstances. I don't know whether I'm going to make myself understood. But it strikes me that what we're looking for is all embracing. So it actually is the nitty-gritty of the detail that actually tells the student, no, this is a better way of doing it, but you have to form your criteria, form your idea as to how you resolve a detail. But also you have to embrace the attitude. We're talking about what we pass on to the next generation, right? And I think that what we're passing on to the next generation in terms of the physical reality is shit. I think that what we can pass on to the next generation in terms of the thinking could be fantastic. So I think that let's not forget in the course of the day that the whole of what we're actually doing is all embracing that it is not just about one aspect. What we are contributing here is fantastic because saying, I have tried, this is what I've done, this is what it looks like. And these are difficulties. And another one, and another one, and another one. And this is opening everybody's horizons in that respect. But for me, please, don't forget that it's all embracing and it starts conceptually, it starts in the abstract terms, then everything that we actually propose as a solution has to relate to the bigger picture of it. And if it relates to the bigger picture comfortably, then we are in the right road. If it doesn't, then we are not. Sorry.
No, thank you very much. And I think that we should close the panel with your wise words, have a break, and then we continue after the break. Is that correct, Sasha? Thank you. Thank you very much.